Hello, everybody, and welcome to the year end. Last week on Earth, last week of the year 2024 wrap up podcast episode. I have not podcasted in a while, as you are quite aware, not since the election when Kamala lost and Trump won again, Orange Monster back in, and I needed to process for a minute. There was no shortage of people immediately, night of the election, immediately after, myself included, on Don Lemon and on my social media, sharing my thoughts of what went wrong for the Democrats. But here I didn't want to really talk about it for a while until I had some time to process and see how things in the transition were unfolding. And also, just generally, as you know, in the past, I've had, quite the up and down with being able to motivate myself to consistently do the podcast. And I've decided the way I'm going to fix that in this coming year is I'm going to relieve myself of feeling responsible for actually sharing all of the news of the last week. You're getting news these days everywhere. Even sarcastic takes and funny takes and hot takes from all sides on social media constantly. You don't need me for the news stories themselves. You need me for my thoughts on the bigger picture and some of the interesting things that are popping out in my head that are making me laugh and that I want most importantly to share with you. I've always felt the burden of covering all of the most interesting things happening, and I think that's a great podcast premise. I've done that for much of the run of this 11 or 12 year podcast now. 12 years. But it makes it a huge lift to pull off the prep on the episodes. And like I said, you don't even need it, or probably don't even expect it or want it. And so, because I don't always do it anyway. So I'm lifting that for myself so I can just record whatever is coming to me as something that I want and need to communicate that week. And I've also banked a couple of very interesting last guest on the road podcast episodes that I'll be releasing in the coming weeks if I ever can't get to that either. So at least you have some content every week. An episode to enjoy. One will be with Leora Pizarro, descendant of the great Pizarro painting family and friend of mine who, in a car ride, told me about her journey of painting and following up on, or in the footsteps of, impressionist geniuses. And another one with Dr. David Rock, one of the world's leading neuroscientists and the author of Your Brain at Work, who's done some really interesting research on how to hack your brain and how it works or doesn't and how it can work better. He's become a friend of mine as well. We recorded it in front of a small dinner party in San Juan del Cabo, Mexico at Summit, Baja, recently. And all that's coming at you in the coming weeks. I hope you've had a great holidays so far. I hope your New Year's Eve is going to be wonderful. If you're around, I'm headlining the New Vic Theater in Santa Barbara, California on New Year's Eve. 2 shows, baby, 2 shows, like 7 and 10 or whatever. Going to be a lot of fun. Tickets at benglebe.com. Follow me on Instagram. That's where a lot of shit is popping off. I'm still doing Young Turks things, and I have very, very big plans coming for you in 2024, so I'm very excited about that and about that. You're damn right. You figured it out. I'm becoming Canadian. Meet me at the local Tim Hortons, and let's drip syrup on each other and eat fries smothered in gravy. I immediately, as I was saying it, I regretted saying it, and I rescind it as both an offer and a request. So just keep that in mind if you can. This year is filled with a lot of highs and lows, and filled with a lot of highs and lows as well. I don't think it's going to be a very long episode. I'm just going to try to take you through some of my thoughts on all of it. I will get back into the election in a couple minutes. But some of the high-level things, there was conflict in this world that was just impossible to overcome. Obviously, I'm talking about Kendrick Lamar and Drake having an epic rap battle of diss tracks back and forth. Consensus is that Kendrick Lamar won, because apparently Drake is not like us, and they in general are not like us. They not like us. I think that's obvious now to everybody. But, there was other conflict, like between J-Lo and Ben Affleck, and they're done again. Everybody saw that coming. Anybody with a brain saw that coming. Selena Gomez got engaged to Benny Blanco. He's a version of me, but whiter. Does Blanco mean white in Spanish? Creo que sí. Creo que es la verdad. Es la palabra para white. But, she's had an amazing year. Quiet Henry Daddy's working right now, and I don't have the time to have this episode edited so please don't do barking, okay? Thank you, buddy. It's okay, there's just sounds. We're on vacation with the family in a cabin in Big Bear, which you should all know as well. Henry Quiet. Selena Gomez had a great year professionally. She's nominated currently for a Golden Globe for both TV and movies, for Only Murders in the Building and Emilia Perez, the musical that I've not yet seen, nor have I caught up in recent episodes of Only Murders in the Building. But people were obsessed with the show Only Murders in the Building, somehow more obsessed with Only Murders Right in Front of the Building of healthcare CEOs. That was a big story that happened recently that kind of was very interesting in the way that a CEO of one of the largest healthcare companies in the world and one of the worst at rejecting claims of people in need, people who then go on sometimes to die or suffer greatly, and people don't seem to be bothered by that. But Luigi Mangione took justice into his own hands, waited outside after getting some Starbucks outside of the street where the dude was walking, shot him down in cold blood, rented a city bike, bounced off to McDonald's where he was caught for taking off his mask to flirt with an employee. Well, that was actually earlier at Starbucks, but I think he was just mask-free at the McDonald's because you can't eat with a mask on your mouth. I don't know if you're aware of that, but you probably learned it in the pandemic after a couple of near misses, just smashing a burger into your face, which is really not an ideal way to do it. A positive was the Dodgers won the World Series, my Dodgers, over the New York Yankees. The Yankees, as I like to call them. And people from Cuba also say it, the Yankees. That would have made my dad super happy, obviously. Biggest Dodger fan ever. And I got to watch them in 2020, them winning the World Series in the short pandemic season, but seeing a full-on one was pretty amazing and magical. And weird as it may sound, when Freddie Freeman hit the incredible grand slam to end Game 1, mirroring the epic and magical Kirk Gibson home run and then a Game 1 that won the Dodgers Game 1 of the World Series back in 1988 that I watched with my dad. My dad, who is now passed, I was on a rooftop in Panama, and whether you believe in these things or not, this happened to me. My dad often, I feel, comes to me in the wind and has appeared literally in palm leaves, even the night of his funeral, by kicking palm leaves in the wind and interacting with me, and all of a sudden this palm leaf on this rooftop in Panama that I'm in Panama City starts waving right at that moment after the Grand Slam that I was watching on my phone, right in front of me, like it wanted me to high-five it, and I just high-fived this palm leaf, and it felt like I was high-fiving my dad. It truly did. And obviously there's no way to prove that's true or not. Don't think I'm super crazy, but I believe it was him communicating in that way, and if not, it made me feel really good to have that experience. But that was a digression that I didn't plan on saying or making in this podcast episode, because of course, I'm not often this way, but I am currently a little stoned, because why not? It's the end of the year. I'm on vacation. Even if I weren't, whatever, Stop judging me. I don't judge you. I don't know what you're doing right now. You could be doing all kinds of stuff. I don't know. I'm not aware of it. Put down the crack pipe, Janine. Put it down right now. In the news, that was very hard for me to take. Machine Gun Kelly and Megan Fox broke up. I think right after Megan Fox announced she was pregnant. That's not okay. I got sidetracked on my Selena Gomez thought because Henry barked, but, she's doing real good. And in her professional life, maybe making weird choices in her personal life. Benny Blanco, I don't even really know who he is, like a producer or something, but Selena Gomez, it's quite the catch. And Luigi Mangione, I got sidetracked from that as well, took out this healthcare CEO. What was insane about it was people were like all about it and cheering on Mangione, the apparent heartthrob murderer. And while you should never advocate for violence, you can understand it. The people's anger towards a system that doesn't fix itself under normal circumstances, and people's rage came out. And so there's that. Again, it's not okay what he did, but you understand that people aren't heartbroken when no one at that company, and Brian Schmidt himself, the CEO, didn't seem to be heartbroken about all the claims he was projecting that were affecting people's lives. So what goes two ways goes twice, you know? One of the saving graces of this year, I'm happy to report, is we've had a lot of joy brought to us, brought to our souls by the Haktua girl. She's still around. She's still, spitting up a storm. And you got to do it. You got to spit on that thing. Everybody knows it, even though I, to be honest with you, disagree with her entire premise. I've only had that happen once or twice and have not enjoyed it. I'd much rather things be naturally sort of lubricated in more subtle ways. Spitting typically is seen as pretty gross, and I don't need that happening during my, how do you say it in French, encounter sexual. I think you understand how to speak French better than I do. If you don't, please write to us here at the pod. Glebe@glebe.com or at Ben Glebe on Twitter. DMs are open, especially if you are a single lady and not a angry man who calls me a bunch of names because of my political positions, which happens far more often these days than the sexy DM slides, unfortunately. But we all get older, I'm approaching 40 the next decade or two. New Jersey had drones flying all over it. Don't worry, I'm getting to the election. I'm just stalling. Still maybe has drones flying over. Nobody really cares that much because it's Jersey. Like, we might be being attacked by aliens right now, or Chinese spy drones. We don't really care. It's like, how much stuff can you get from New Jersey? Is there really a lot of info you're getting from Jersey? Like, take the info. I'm speaking as a man not from New Jersey, so I realize it's hypocritical and unfair of me to say it, but also I don't care. So there's that I'd like to get clear. It's just been a weird year, and aliens invading is the least of my worries, 2 astronauts NASA sent up to the International Space Station on a Boeing jet, which is their first mistake, and then they couldn't get back because on account of Boeing, see earlier word. So they're stranded up there in the International Space Station, and seeing how this year went, they're probably the 2 luckiest people on Earth, and obviously also not on Earth because they're not on Earth. But even if they were here, well, they'd be less lucky. They're pretty lucky to be up there. They're celebrating Christmas. They're up there with Russian cosmonauts, and they're getting along, unlike us with Russia down here, except, again, Trump won, and so Russia's pretty happy, and suddenly the Republican Party is like buddies with Russia more than our ally Ukraine. They like our adversaries a lot these days for some reason, as does people on the extreme left also seem to like Iran's authoritarian government and terrorist organizations all across the Middle East more than our democracy and allies in the Middle East. More than democracy and allies in the Middle East. So there's also that. Maybe a word more on that in a minute as well. I'm just giving you an overview here, The climate's been getting hotter and hotter, much worse. Looks like it will be the hottest year on record this year, with huge cataclysmic weather events happening constantly. I mean, not just in my bedroom, everywhere in the world. And people seem to be less focused on stopping climate change. The only people really focused on it seem to also really hate famous art and just go in museums and splash paint on it. They tried to throw paint at the Mona Lisa. That was less effective on account of Mona Lisa being behind 40 years worth of glass. They just, threw paint on glass, which was easily wiped off. The real gangster anti-art climate activists are the ones that go into museums and put super glue on their hands and glue themselves to the walls, and they still get immediately ripped away and put in jail. Now they have, fucked up hand skin, but you do got to commit that kind of commitment and understand that kind of understandment. You know what I was trying to say, and I don't even want to repeat it or clarify it. I couldn't repeat something if I said it wrong the first time, but you understand. Okay, so Kamala lost, and my takeaway on it is this. Look, I think it's a combination of things, obviously. I think Biden fucked us. He fucked us hard. He should have never ran 4 years ago. He was already not cognitively there, and I was saying it constantly even when I was running against him. In 2020, he beat me, but Kamala, I outlasted her campaign, and I beat her in Coos County in the primaries in New Hampshire, just so you know. I know it's pronounced Coos County, but it's spelled Coos. Look it up if you like, but, she's not super hardest to beat, clearly, in elections. But Biden should never have certainly run a second time. And then even taking the weeks after that horrible debate, should have dropped out way quicker. But certainly should have dropped out even way before he announced he was running again. He should never run again. Because it's important to have a brain that is functioning great when you're running the entire world. Biden's been wacky for a long time now. Even when he's is making sense, which is rare, he's always telling us that what he's saying is not a joke. He thinks he's a stand-up comedian for some reason. He will say very serious things, and then he'll be like, "Crime rate's up, folks. It's not a joke." Yeah, no, nobody thinks it's a joke. Why do you think we think it's a joke? Women's rights are being taken away all around the country, folks. I'm not kidding around. Did you think we thought you were kidding around about women's rights being taken away? No one thinks you're joking about that. You don't have to say that all the time. This is no joke, folks. Our democracy is at risk. I'm not doing some kind of material here, folks. We know. Please just do a McConnell and freeze staring in the distance. It would be better. It would be a lot better. But he boned us, and Kamala hopped in last minute, so you kind of can't blame her for not having a fully fleshed out campaign, but you also kind of can because, you got a half senile, super old guy at the top of the ticket. You're not keeping at least an iPhone note yourself with ideas of what you would do differently and how you would fix the country differently than Biden? In multiple interviews, your answer was, "I will be different than Joe Biden." And they say, how? And you're like, well, we're different humans with different personalities and life experiences. That was her actual answer. When asked what policy-wise she'd do different, which obviously is what people are curious about, more than you've got a different personality as a younger, half black, half white Asian woman than a all white, very white, pasty pale, very, very elderly white man. So we knew that part. You don't have an iPhone note with ideas? I got iPhone notes for all kinds of things that will never happen, let alone very likely eventuality. So you can kind of blame her for it. And she just, I think, listened to her advisors too much, didn't have a Sister Soldier moment, which just never rejected any part of the far left orthodoxy that was has been constraining, I think, people on the left, liberals and Democrats in general, too much. I think that's one of the takeaways. The country was enough of extreme over-wokeness. I agree with that. We need to protect human rights. We need to protect important things in order of importance. We need to protect the oppression of marginalized groups, but not every whim of a marginalized group needs to be top of the priority list. You know what I'm saying? We can tackle sometimes the most important, bigger things first, like saving our democracy, making sure the economy is strong, and making sure women's rights aren't taken away more than they already have been recently, rather than making sure a prisoner gets their gender reassignment surgery paid for by the state when they're being punished by the state at the same time as well, or whether, a very, very small amount of trans women should be able to compete in women's sports in high school and college or any level. It's an issue we can talk about, but not this moment, not during the election, not leading up to an election when so much is in limbo, when the world is in chaos, when the planet's crumbling, when democracy is dying at home and abroad, when terrorism is running rampant. It's not the top issue because it affects very few people. And there's good arguments that those things should not be happening as well. And so if the debate's still out, it doesn't need to be the identity of the party. And it wasn't talked about ad nauseum. It wasn't a major part, but the party's just been framed as that, as caring more about ignorant college students protesting in very aggressive, honestly ignorant ways, not knowing what they're talking about, not knowing any of the history of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and destroying and defacing the schools they attend themselves, and siding with terrorists of Hamas over our democracy, our ally in the Middle East. And not to be very clear, not to say that Israel has been great, not to say that Israel hasn't made mistakes, not to say that Netanyahu's good, he's bad, he's terrible, he's corrupt, he's got to leave office immediately. He should have gotten all the hostages out a long time ago by now. But also the war is going in the direction Israel hoped, at least as far as the objective of eradicating Hamas, the terrorist organization controlled and funded by Iran, that promises to eradicate Israel from the face of the earth, to eradicate Jews from the face of the earth, and then come for everybody in the West, because they don't like our Western ideals. They want the whole world to be under an Islamic caliphate. That is the problem. That's the real colonialism taking place in the world, the real ethnic cleansings taking place, the real aggressive affronts to what we are supposed to care about in the West, which is about democracy, human rights, treating people fairly, and not pledging to kill them. Because you can't treat people fairly while pledging to kill them if you're not aware of that fact. And so no one questions that the death toll in this war has been horrendous and horrible. It's been horrible to see. It's been horrible to witness. The first war really broadcast on social media, and it needs to stop as soon as humanly possible. I just think the part missing so often from the discourse is the fact that the way to stop the war immediately is to tell the terrorists who started it to release the hostages and lay down their weapons. And then the war can end. Israel can't stop. It needs to be much more careful with innocent life, because that has been one of the greatest tragedies I've ever seen in my life. But it also can't stop the effort until the people that are still today, to this very moment, promising to kill them and us, are still doing it, and not just saying it, sending missiles, rockets every day into Israel practically. I get the alerts on my phone whenever the missiles go off. It's all the time. People aren't aware of that. And on-the-ground terrorist attacks constantly. A 92, I believe, year old Holocaust survivor moved to the state of Israel because it was supposed to be the one safe haven for Jews in the world, and was just stabbed to death by a Hamas terrorist in Israel. They ended up getting her after such a painful life she already has led. Small example of how bonkers this world is. And as much as I am super not stoked that Trump won again, I've made peace with it to whatever degree I can before seeing what the administration is going to be, and just while needing to find the positives, the silver linings in any negative thing. I think that he will be stronger in bringing this war to an end, getting the hostages released, and in supporting Jews and stemming the very rapid, very scary rise of anti-Semitism happening everywhere, constantly, faster than it needs to be. Stemming a little bit of the ignorance. He's ignorant on many things, but on this one issue, he's pretty spot on. And it's not made up. I've experienced some crazy instances of anti-Semitism from DMs recently that called me vermin as a Jew and said they wished I would be put to death. They meant in the gas chambers, but they said in the gas stations. So they just also are clearly, as these racist, ignorant, anti-Semitic haters always are, very stupid, uneducated, inelegantly speaking people. To my mom and I going into Cantor's Deli in L.A. after having left the Nova concert exhibit in L.A., honoring the horrible tragedy on October 7th that started all this, and walking past the mural on the wall in Cantor's Deli, just about Judaism, showing Jewish heroes and rabbis and Sandy Koufax pitching not a mention of Israel in the entire mural. And this young couple walking by look at it and go, "Oh, Zionists, we need to throw something at that mural. We fucking hate Zionists." not understanding that Jews are not necessarily all Zionist, and that Zionist is not a bad word. It's nothing to do with the politics of the current moment. It simply just means that Jews have a right to have a safe homeland on this earth. One tiny little strip of a nation, when the Arab world that wants to kill us has currently 22 Arab nations and like 46 Muslim majority nations all around us in Israel. That's not a crazy concept, but it's also because of the weaponization of that word and the fact that Zionism was achieved in 1948 when Israel was established. That word also needs to just be retired. It's not helpful to anything. But to finish up the point about the war and move back to the election, if you truly want the war to end as soon as possible and all of this horrible tragedy to stop, you have to put at least some, if not the vast majority of your public activism, at least some also calling for Hamas, the terrorists that started this, to end it. Terrorists should not run and hold the Palestinian people hostage either, as they have been for so long. Period. End of story. And Israel's not trying to do land grabs. There was war also with Lebanon because Hezbollah, the other terrorist organization attacking Israel from the north, also controlled and funded by Iran, another one of their proxies. There was war, and they negotiated a ceasefire, and now there's no more war, and Israel's not keeping Lebanon. They're not taking wide swaths of territory and making it their own, like the colonialism claims claim. It's when claimed claims are disproven, stop claiming them. Can we at least do that in 2025? I'm going to end this podcast in a little bit with some positive looking forward to the changes I want to make in my own life and encourage you to make some positive changes in your own. So start thinking about them if you haven't already. But, so Trump won again, and I am not going to do one thing for sure like I did last time. I'm not going to get my panties in a bunch about every single thing that he says and does, acting as though I'm surprised at them, because we know that he's nuts. We know he's a rabble-rouser. We know he's a flamethrower. We know he cares about himself only, and he's selfish and says things for a reaction and is a temper tantrum-giving baby. We know that already, and the country seems to want it. And also, I don't wear panties, so I can't even get them in a bunch. But the country seems to want it. Having been elected twice now, it's not a fluke, and he won the popular vote this time, and the Republicans got both houses of Congress as well. So that way it was a real message that the country, while certainly a lot of his supporters, the negative side of it is that they don't know what he represents. They aren't very educated very oftentimes. They just want change. They didn't believe Kamala was change because she's the current administration, which you can kind of understand that, and she didn't really have great plans. And Trump pretends he can solve everything, and so he just made a bunch of lies up and said, I'm going to bring down grocery prices until he got elected, and then immediately said, oh yeah, it's very hard to do that, by the way. Not sure I can do that. And said he's going to end Israel-Gaza war within 24 hours before he's back. I mean, right when he's back in office, he's going to end the Ukraine-Russia war within 24 hours, and he's walking back a lot of his promises now that he won, already publicly saying he can't do all those things. And a lot of his supporters are realizing immediately that they didn't know even what they were voting for, and they're seeing some negative effects, and it's likely their taxes will rise, and likely the tariffs that he plans to impose will hurt them and cost the regular American much more each year. But they just really wanted that change anyway. And so we need to stop being at war with each other as much as possible. I will still rise up when necessary. I will still mobilize as needed. I will man up, mobilize as needed, man up when it's essential. But I'm not going to fight every day against this administration because clearly this is what America is wanting. And we need to focus on our commonalities more than our negatives, you know. So some of the negatives, Elon Musk basically bought the election, put $250 million in, bought Trump, basically. He basically seems to be the de facto silent unelected president telling Trump what to do. Oftentimes he basically killed the initial bipartisan negotiated deal to keep the government open through an agreed upon budget to extend it until April, and just got it killed, boom, like this. That's a negative. positive is that it seems power is at least more accessible now. I mean, obviously he's the richest man on earth, so that's not a model to follow, but like Robert Kennedy ran against him, made some waves, and now he's in there. He's got some wacky ass things to say and weird and bad things he's done, but also make America healthy again is a great idea. And we shouldn't get rid of vaccines, but we should give people options to not take vaccines, especially if they're not tested. And also we should make sure we fund new vaccines and give people cutting edge research. We also shouldn't get rid of the polio vaccine like he's pushing for, but we should get all kinds of chemicals out of our foods that for some reason the FDA has allowed for far too long. Why have we? Nobody knows. So let's get rid of that. And he might do that. He might push that to happen. Why does cereal by Kellogg sold in America have an extra like 15 chemicals and weird ingredients, artificial things in it than it does in Canada, just right above us? Just look up and do it that way. And by up, I mean north. So it depends where you are, I guess, strategically and geographically. But these are positives. And so I want to hope for positives. And I hope that we're realizing with also this election, people that in the past have supported Democrats voting for Republicans, not based on party loyalty, but based on frustration, and people cheering on a murderer who killed a healthcare CEO, not because they're pro-murder, but because they're frustrated and realize it's been too long of the top of this country keeping the rest of us down and the very few richest people making us fight each other, that we maybe don't want to fight each other anymore. Maybe we're done with that. Maybe we would like to just get a fair share, get our conditions improved, be treated better, be treated more as human, and then live day to day in a way that is more copacetic, is more chill, and messed up systems, when they get very messed up, do have a way to correct themselves. Like already Trump supporters are having major infighting and almost a civil war within MAGA. Not that I want that again, like I just said, but they didn't know what they were electing, and they're so anti-immigrant now. They're even anti-legal immigrants, even the most intelligent people coming here on H-1B visas that Elon Musk supports, because he came here on an H-1B visa, and Tesla employs hundreds of, as the SpaceX, hundreds of H-1B visas, where we allow people with the most skills from other countries to come here and kind of cut the line and get temporary, and then can apply for green cards. And it's a big part of what helps make our country great. Not just again, but in general. And we are great, I believe, and we have to retain that. We're not great in all ways, obviously. And Trump said he's always backed H-1B visas because Elon said literally, and as a very mature person kind of running our world and country and world, literally tweeted on the platform that he owns, the public square that he owns, and the election in a country that he owns too, by the way. But on X, formerly Twitter, literally said, I will go to war on this issue. If you are against H-1B visas, you can fuck your face, he said. You can fuck your face. Yes, I'm Elon Musk. Very rich. You can fuck your face. Said you can fuck your face. Those exact words. So that's the maturity level we're at. Even Trump wouldn't post you can fuck your face. So we're at new levels of discourse here in America. But then Trump said he's always been for it, even though in his first term he tried to weaken H-1B visas and allowed many fewer of them. But now he's on board with them, and MAGA won't allow it. And Trump's very racist supporters like Laura Loomer and others were incredibly racist about this, and people were upset that Trump appointed an Indian man to be his head of artificial intelligence advisor, his head advisor for that, and people flipped out in very racist ways, leading Indian people in Trump's own administration to say there's good Indians and bad Indians, and I'm one of the good ones, like not even calling out the racism, but kind of agreeing with it and just saying, please don't hate me. So it's fucked up. We know that. And what's fucked up, I think, beyond all of that is social media is just making us at each other's throats. It's getting worse in that way. We're living in different realities, completely different algorithms, completely different silos. So I have a project, a very fun, very funny, very exciting meeting place project coming up next year that I will be telling you more about and fundraising for and coming out in a big way. That'll be, I think, a water cooler that I've talked about it before, but I won't get any more specific than that right now, but a common water cooler for us across the planet to hopefully bridge our gaps more and just have some fun doing it and some laughs doing it. But we've got to do something about this. We've got to get rid, like I've said forever, of these algorithms that are surely about eyeball time and monetizing our attention for sheer pure profit motives only. You can make billions, you don't have to make like millions of billions at the detriment of the psychology of ourselves and our children and our nation in general and our world as a whole. Do you think that's possible? That would be nice. We got to do something about it. TikTok was about to be banned, and Trump's now asking for the Supreme Court to not ban it because they literally complimented him and helped him win the election also, and so now he's in favor of them. They made a big donation to him, and he literally said, they're very nice to me, and they showed me a chart, and so I think maybe we got to keep them around now a little longer. Keep them around a little longer, okay. All you got to do is compliment the guy and give him some money, and you're good, so that is very wild, I think. But it's not slowing down, and it's integrating with AI now, and AI is not slowing down. We're not doing the regulation we need there, and so we got to do something to stop this stuff. Like, I'm using ChatGPT. I'm already addicted to it, but Facebook is just like going even next level. They have new AI tools that they've already implemented this year without running it by really anybody, where now they have AI users by the many tens of thousands that are interacting with people. I don't even know if they label them as AI. I pray that they do. I assume they do. I couldn't find reporting that they do or not, but they have fake human users to increase their engagement, and people can create these fake users. So they're creating like avatars, basically, that they can create that are then generating content, commenting on content, liking, interacting with, sharing. And it's a real problem. Good night, Mama. I love you. My mom just woke up in the middle of this podcasting night, and I feel terrible about that. I hope I didn't wake her. Did I wake you? I'm going to take that as a yes. I think she just had to pee, maybe, as humans do. But it's almost midnight. My family's been asleep for a couple hours as I do this episode in our Big Bear vacation here. But, and they're just creating, we already don't know what to believe, and now we have even users that are created by the platforms themselves that are literally bots, and we can't tell. And you can now, anybody now can now create an AI clone of themselves, by the way, on Facebook, and people can interact with it already. And you've seen them, sure, on Instagram and TikTok. They're already making AI videos, action movies, insane scenes that look completely video realistic. You can't even tell they're fake anymore. I haven't yet seen dialogue and human acting done with like words and emotions, but they are creating scenes and human faces and intense ordeals and things that would be multi-million-dollar budgets just with computers. Even on your phone, you can do a lot of this now. So it's very bad. Facebook is letting people create tons of fake people. No, please don't do that. It's really stupid, but it's happening, and they won't stop and they won't listen. So there is also that situation. A positive thing in Syria, rebels just rised up seemingly out of nowhere and took out Bashar al-Assad. The leader, the corrupt, horrible leader is done. Did I wake you, Mama? Did I wake you?
No way.
You sure?
I swear.
I love you.
I love you.
Happy Hanukkah.
You too.
That was cute. She said ma, which is Hebrew for what? So being in half asleep state. She spoke her native language there for a second. That was lovely. And that was my mom's first appearance, even though from a great distance. I don't even know if you could hear her well there, but on the podcast in many years. I love her so much, and I love my whole family so much. And many of you that have heard my parents on the podcast so many times, I know have really warm feelings towards them as well. So thank you for always being there, part of the Brain Trust, and listening to their really wise words. In Syria, Bashar al-Assad, horrible, corrupt dictator, authoritarian son of a bitch, who's been in power for so long after taking over his father, who was also the same horrible qualities. Bashar al-Assad killed so many of his own people. hundreds of thousands, gassed them, used chemical weapons on them. It was a red line that Obama put down that he didn't follow through on when he did then use chemical weapons on his own people, which really made us look weak. And you can't do that. You can't, as America, put down red lines and then not follow through. But we did it, and that is what it is. And rebels rose up, and took his whole government out. And Assad and his wife fled to Russia. His wife's now, it seems like, maybe leaving him. Because when you ain't in power no more and you can't kill no more people, where's the spark? There's no more romance left in that relationship. But that's a positive. The potential scary negative is that Syria's current new interim leadership is former terrorists who were part of groups that wanted to kill us and still do want to kill us. But the leader, main guy, claims he's reformed now and doesn't want to do that anymore. So we're going to, take his word at it, but hope that that is true. We shall see in 2025. Russia-Ukraine war still going. 4th year of that war. I mentioned it earlier, but let's hope that ends soon and that Ukraine doesn't get completely taken over by Russia. And by the way, also we approved recent weeks, Biden just kind of making one move to put Trump in an awkward situation, allowing Ukraine to use our weapons we're giving them to launch attacks deep into Russia itself, which escalates the war and is pretty crazy. Of course, we're also in Sudan, very underreported, under-talked about. One of the worst humanitarian crises ever. More children fleeing than any other war in the world. And it's not talked about. It's not as sexy or anti-Jew, I suppose, as the Israel-Hamas war. And so it doesn't get mentioned, even though the numbers are way worse and many more have died. So many more in recent years have been killed in Yemen and Syria, like I mentioned, and people don't seem to mention it or care about it nearly as much smaller numbers. But that's what, again, social media and algorithms and selective outrage and with some anti-Semitism thrown in there will do. But, there were other positives. South Korea's president, for a minute, tried to go real-life Squid Games on us and declared martial law in his own country because there were there was unrest and uprisings against his corrupt government, and saying that he was taking too much power. So his response: declare martial law, take more power. Well, why is that good news? The good news is that they immediately ousted him from power. So you claim too much power, the people don't get very happy. Take that as a warning, Trump, okay? Even though we don't have the ability to call immediate elections in quite the same way that they do in other countries, because we didn't think of some things when we put this place together. But we're doing our best. We're doing our best, sweetie. Okay. At least it was a great year for Taylor Swift. She did a great job. $1 billion grossing Eras tour. Beyonce became a country artist and blended so beautifully country and hip hop that I don't know who I am anymore. Post Malone became a country artist full on, and dance is super goofy. You can YouTube it. So the world's just in a strange place. And I know some of the last things I mentioned because I'm just starting now to listen to new music again. For the last few years recently, ever since I last loved Miley's Bangers album and last loved Fun's album Some Nights, excuse me, and last loved Miley's, I'd already say that, I meant Justin Bieber's new album as well back in the day, a few years back, but I've stopped listening to, by and large, new music, and I've started to do it again because I want to be connected to the culture. You can't remain connected to the culture or help advance the future if you're literally only hearing the past. You have to hear and be in touch with the current moment of the world. And I'm just realizing this now at age 40. And I'm not even 40 anymore. But like I said, I'm living in the past. But you got to hear new music is the point I'm trying to make. You can't be aware of what's currently going on in the zeitgeist while still hearing I met him at the candy store. Nobody meets at candy stores anymore. We don't even really have candy stores. I guess we do have them, but you go in solo, you get your bag, you take your candy, you get out. You're not meeting your significant other at no candy store no more. You get the point I'm making. And so it's a crazy world, but we're figuring it out. We're getting through it. We're self-correcting. Like the Olympics tried breakdancing. Women came out and danced super weird. It's over now. That was a small one, but we fixed it relatively quickly. Mudang the hippo. We were obsessed. Cute little hippo born in the zoo, starts biting people's kneecaps. Adorable. We're not worried about him anymore at the moment. I think we've lost track of him. We're letting things naturally ebb and flow is the point I'm trying to make. This year's been brat. I really don't know what that means. I haven't gotten to Charlie XCXXS yet in my music renaissance. And by renaissance, I mean current moment and not the renaissance. But if that means past to you, that's not what I meant. Relax, get off my back, please. Some podcast's almost over, and I don't want to fight with you going into the new year. Let's just be happy, okay? Let's be very happy together. One last plug. You can join my Patreon, patreon.com/Ben Glebe on on January 3rd. We're doing a goal setting together session, just a live video hang on Zoom to discuss the year that was and to set our intentions and goals and things we want to manifest for the year to come. I'll share a couple of mine just real quick, is that I'm manifesting my destiny this year, but I'm also doing it the right way finally. I am going to tackle my biggest problem, which is waking up early. I've committed to waking up at 8:45 alarm every weekday with just 2 mulligans a month because I'm human. And only one snooze max, getting out of bed. By 8:55, I hired a life coach. I'm going to send her a picture of my bed being made by 8:55 sharp. 5 days a week, work days, with 2 mulligans. Because I have a habit, if you don't know it, of snoozing indefinitely. I'll set an alarm for usually like very early for me, 11 or 11:15, 11:30, and then sleep till 1:15 and snooze like 20 times and have just horrible 9-minute chunk interrupted sleep. So I'm done with that. And I'm changing a lot of little habits. I hang up my pants now every night for the last many months, thanks to motivation from my coach and my own self-determination. I've still kept off at least 15 of the 20 pounds I lost in the last year and a half. I'm going to start going to the gym at least twice a week, starting reasonable, but hopefully 3 times a week. I'm walking my dog 30 minutes a day, at least 3 times a week now, instead of these quick walks I often end up giving him, which is not cool. I am doing my dishes as soon as they're done now. I'm not leaving dry dishes out, putting them away. I'm trying to make those little changes. Next up, hang up my belt every night, put my laundry every night in the laundry basket. I'm next going to stop biting my nails, and I think the waking up will do wonders, and I also have to tackle just my 3 biggest goals every day. First and foremost, and only look at social media during lunchtime or after 6 p.m. once I've finished my main goals for the day. I need to take control. I can't be led so much by the whims of others. If I want to create my own destiny, I have to focus on what it is that I truly deep down want to do. And so that's my question for you, is what do you truly deep down want to do this year? Who do you want to be this year? Who and what would you like to become? Write it down and make it very realistic, because every year I wake way too many goals and make way too many goals as well. And they're impossible to follow, and you feel disempowered after just a few days, which I think is why January 4th will be really nice to set those goals together. But should be very actionable, and just 1 or 2 major things you'd like to tackle this year, maybe 3 max. Because I had a very humbling, kind of weird, kind of sad, kind of strange moment happen. I was going through notebooks as I was cleaning my house. I also just did a big spring cleaning in winter, and finally gave away all these things that I've been holding on to forever because I visually like them, because I have good memories of them, because I want to one day wear them, because I used to wear them, but I haven't touched in years. And just giving away stuff that I like is actually a really powerful thing I've started to do, because I've been able in the past to slowly give away things I didn't like that much anymore, but things I like, I'm like, oh, I like them, I'm attached to them, but I like a lot of stuff. I have big eyes and a big heart, and so I find myself liking a lot of things, but you have to sometimes give up on things you like to focus on and get the things you really love and the things you want the most. And I'm learning that in weird ways. Henry just hit his head under this cabinet, so he needs to just work on more rudimentary stuff, like avoid head injuries that are unnecessary because you hide under things that are hard on top of your head, and then every time there's a noise you stir and you bop your head right on top. Sorry if that bop was loud in your ear. Listeners, I apologize. Brain trust. I didn't mean to hurt your brain in that way. But the sobering way I learned it was I found a notebook that had on the back page, the back cover of it inside, my goals for 2005. And they were so many of the same goals I'm still putting every year now on my goals list, my resolutions list. Wake up, get out of bed within 30 minutes of setting my alarm. Learn, finally, focus and discipline. It's all I need to become who I want. It's focus and discipline. I've got the other skills and talents. And literally 20 years go by. Literally 2 decades go by without changing the things you want to change, without becoming who you want to become, without learning that discipline. So this year is about that next level focus for me. Giving it just 1 year of trying it. I might not like it. I might go back to my old ways and just be cool with a different level of success or achievement. But I definitely don't want to look back at my life and say I didn't even give it a year to try. 1 year, because so much can change in a year if you really stay dedicated to something. So I'm committed to that. But I'm also committed to something else new that I think is very important for mental health and for being happy with yourself while you work towards your goals and your dreams, is being easier on myself. I've been hard on myself for a very long time. I'm not the hardest on myself. I have a lot of fun in my life, and I clearly sometimes sleep in because I go to bed at absurd hours. I don't sleep too much, but I sleep at absurd hours, and I enjoy things, and I go to the parties I get invited to when I feel like going to them because I want to enjoy my life, and life could end at any moment, and it's all about that balance. But I also get down on myself for not tackling my goals. I sometimes feel listless or get a bit depressed or sad when I have days, weeks, months, years, and like I just said, decades sometimes go by without achieving my goals, and I want to let that go because I also am me. I am flawed. We are all flawed. We won't all become every dream we have, nor should we. We're not robots. The robots are coming anyway. So let's not lose our humanity along the way. I'm going to be cool with if I fail, being easy on myself, the times I fail, not being too hard on myself, not getting down on who I am, because I'm just doing my best like you are, like we all are. And that piece of knowing I want to do more because I truly deeply want it, and when I find myself not doing it, being easy on myself because I know that that particular day or that particular moment I didn't want to do it, and being happy with that being who I am, I think will be powerful and a nice combo. Or maybe that's an excuse. Who knows? Maybe it's an excuse for me to fuck it all up. We'll see. We'll see. I'd love to keep chatting with all of you, but I'm currently being brutally attacked by an angry, slimy, wet hippo right in the knees. Which reminds me of one little lovely anecdote. Is my family wanted to all drive up together to Big Bear, and so we put 5 of us plus 2 dogs plus a bunch of bags of luggage and gear for the snow, because we're going sledding tomorrow, into my brother's Tesla. Not even a crazy huge minivan Tesla. They even make those? I don't know. Regular Tesla, but it has a third row, a miniature third row that my 8-year-old nephew Oliver squeezed into. And it was reasonably comfortable. It was actually nice, except when we stopped for lunch and my brother's seat automatically went back and crushed my kneecaps. Very aggressively, like incredibly painful. You know, I'm smiling right now, but it didn't feel that way. And then we realized he has to turn off the engine after I get out of the car first next time. So when we got to the cabin, we both forgot, and he turned off the engine again, and my knees got crushed again, and then it happened a third time. So other than the fact that I've had 3 aggressive knee injuries and my dog hit his head twice just during this podcast alone, and the fact that, you know, there's a lot of variables that are going to make this next year either incredible or super fucked up and weird. The beauty is that we don't know. There's a lot of joy in the not knowing because it makes life fun and interesting and surprising. And, you know, you got to look for those silver linings. And I suggest that we all try to do that and try to give people the benefit of the doubt this coming year in 2025, and not freak out until it's absolutely necessary, because we owe it to ourselves to have a chiller year this time. This last one was not chill. 2024 had no chill, and I would like much better vibe going into 05. Vibes in 25. How does that sound? Vibe in 25? Is that a better rhyme? Anyway. wish you all the great rest of your holidays. Restful, fun, good, joyous, a blast, and a very happy new year. Until last week, next week, this has been Last Week on Earth.